Welcome to 5 Minute Bible, your daily guide for your daily reading. Today's March the 28th, and we'll be looking at Joshua 19 through 21. Now, today's reading brings a long journey to its dramatic climax. The battles are over, the land has been subdued, and now what was promised generations earlier is finally placed in the hands of the people. And Joshua 19 through 21 shows us the moment where the promise becomes possession and where God's faithfulness is no longer anticipated, but it's seen. And Joshua 19 completes the division of the land, and the remaining tribes, Simeon and Zebulun and Issachar and Asher and Naphtali and Dan, all received their portions. Each boundary is drawn, each inheritance is assigned, and each family is placed within what God has promised. And then, almost quietly, Joshua himself receives his portion. Not at the beginning, but at the end, because that's what leaders do. The leader who guided the people into the land takes his inheritance last, not as a ruler claiming privilege, but as a servant receiving what God has provided. From there, Joshua 20 introduces the cities of refuge. These are cities that stand as places of protection for those who cause death unintentionally. Justice, therefore, is not abandoned, but it is restrained, and it is codified in a way that is responsible. The cycle of revenge is interrupted, and judgment is handled carefully within God's order. Mercy and justice, therefore, meet in the structure of the land itself. Then Joshua 21 expands that structure further. The Levites are given cities scattered all throughout the tribes because they're not going to receive a central territorial allotment like the other tribes because their role in the community of God is different. They are placed among the people so that the knowledge of God and the ministry of worship and the instruction of the law remain woven in the life of the nation. They're like salt that is scattered all throughout the portion so that every piece is seasoned. And in that way, this entire section revolves with a single powerful statement. Not one of all of the good promises that the Lord made had failed. Every word came to pass. So as you read today, I want you to ask the following question. Do I really believe that God keeps every single promise that he makes? Joshua 19 through 21 shows us that God's faithfulness is never partial or delayed in failure or even uncertain. It is complete and it always comes to pass. And that is the central pattern in these chapters, which is fulfillment that has been long awaited. For generations, the promise of the land was spoken, it was repeated, it was carried forward, it was believed, and it was trusted. Through slavery in Egypt, through the wilderness wanderings, through battles, and though the promise remained ahead of the people, now at last it's surrounding them and it's actualized. And that moment speaks directly to us today as well, because there are seasons where God's promises feel distant, where obedience stretches into long seasons where we don't see the outcome yet visible. And these chapters remind us that delay is not denial. God works across space and time, but he never abandons what he has spoken through his word. And at the same time, the story also doesn't deal with possession alone. The cities of refuge and the placement of the Levites show us that life inside the promises still requires order and justice and ongoing faithfulness, because receiving the promise is not the end of obedience. It's actually the beginning of it and the beginning of living inside of it. And these chapters also clearly point us forward to Jesus Christ, because the completed inheritance of the land anticipates the greater inheritance secured by Christ. What Israel receives in geography and topography, believers receive in eternity, a kingdom that cannot be shaken, cannot be diminished, cannot be lost. The cities of refuge also press the picture further, because those in danger could flee and find safety within their boundaries. Well, in the same way, Christ becomes our true refuge, where sinners can flee from judgment and find protection within his walls. Not temporarily, though, but forever. And then the scattering of the Levites anticipates even something greater as well, because in the new covenant, God's presence is no longer concentrated in a single place. Through Christ, it spreads among his people and extends beyond tribal borders into all the nations. What Joshua distributes physically in a particular area, Christ is going to do so universally and globally all over the world. So as you read Joshua 19 through 21, I want you to let that final statement settle in. Not one of the good promises God has made failed to come to pass. Not one word failed. And tomorrow we're going to hear Joshua's final words to the people. Like Moses, he's going to give a final appeal where he calls them to remain faithful to the God who has kept every one of his promises. And with that, read your Bible carefully, devotionally, and joyfully, and may the Lord use his word to sanctify you completely, and we will continue our journey tomorrow. God bless you.